Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm your host, Melissa Tallman. I'm happy to welcome you to our weekly series we are calling Coalition Conversations. We'll be speaking with industry experts and leaders on a variety of topics that all have one thing in common: a prosperous America. Many of you may know us, while some may just be hearing about CPA for the first time. We're a nonprofit organization and the only one to represent domestic producers in the field of manufacturing, agriculture, and labor. Our group is diverse and bipartisan. We work with all political parties to advance policies that will hopefully create jobs, create economic growth, and allow the U.S. to compete nationally and globally. My guests today are known for their actions to create more transparency for buying and selling American-made products. Please welcome Greg Owens, CEO of Liberty Tabletop, the only U.S. flatware manufacturing company, and founder of MadeInAmericaAgain.org and author of What If Things Were Made in America Again, Jim Stuber. Hi, guys. Thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa.
So, buying America and reading for product labels on where an item is made is important on many different levels. Both of you have been advocating for U.S. manufacturers and consumers and have had some really great results. But what was your light bulb moment that kind of sparked you to become an activist for Buy America?
Greg, if you don't mind, I'll go first on that one because it's so funny that my light bulb moment actually involved a light bulb. Seriously, I took out a light bulb a few years ago, and on it was two things: the GE logo, and in caps underneath that, the word China. And I thought, wow, if GE is making its light bulbs in China, maybe we have a problem. So I set off finding out why was it that and everything else being made in China or somewhere, and was that causing a problem? And if it was, what could we do about it? And the result was the book, What If Things Were Made in America Again, trying to get to the bottom of what the heck was going on.
Awesome.
How about you, Greg?
Well, thank you, Jim. My, I guess, light bulb moment didn't start out with a light bulb. I was working for Oneida Limited. A lot of you may recognize that name as the most recognizable brand of flatware that's ever existed in the world. And watched them close down a bunch of factories. And then the last factory here in Sherrill, New York, they made a decision that they had to close that down because of China and the competition coming out of there. And that prompted Matt Roberts and I to form a group and buy the factory. And that was when we started Sherrill Manufacturing, and several years later, the Liberty Tabletop brand, which, as Melissa mentioned, is now still the only flatware manufacturer in the United States. And it makes me reflect back on my life. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, which was a booming town of industry. Companies like London Fog, who made the jackets, you probably recognize that brand. Black & Decker tools. I still have some of the old tools that were made in Towson, Maryland, down in the basement. Of course, all those businesses have stopped and moved their production overseas, mainly to China. And Matt and I always felt that there would be a resurgence of demand for Made in America products. But it only showed up sort of in the rhetoric of different administrations. We were hopeful when Obama took over, some of his rhetoric that never really translated to much action on that front. Of course, President Trump came along and really brought the issue to the forefront. And now that the Biden administration has taken over, we're all sort of wondering where we're headed with this. And the initial reaction is very positive. The Build Back Better program that he's announced addresses a lot of the issues that we've been stumping on for years. And his recent executive order and announcement of the Buy America policies that are going to be put in place regarding things like infrastructure, green energy, the military, and government spending in general are very encouraging, particularly in their establishment of an office within the White House, which will have to sign off on any of the exceptions to these rules that already exist. But those exceptions have been pretty much handed out at willy-nilly for decades, and now it looks like they're going to only hand them out by exception. So that's encouraging news. The other thing that's really interesting that has come out since the election, I didn't hear too much about this during the process, is tying the entire globalization process into what I believe they're calling economic and racial inequality. And it really makes a lot of sense. This is something that we've known and we've talked about for decades. Now, I'll go back to Baltimore, the place where I grew up in. We all know that the challenges that community is facing. And when it comes down to it, the folks who lost their jobs as a result of this, when these factories, be it textile factories or consumer goods factories shut down, were people of color and women. And they have been the hardest hit by this process. So part of the platform that's coming out of the Biden administration deals with trade policy, and not only viewing it as an issue that's, tariffs bad because it's going to raise consumer prices, but they're also adding a component to trade and tariffs that involves what it does to people, working class people here in the United States, and what it does to our communities and the devastating impact that it's had. And that is very encouraging. Again, people say a lot of different things, and then maybe they follow up on it, maybe they don't. But through CPA and the people that we've spoken with, the folks that we've known for years, we're getting every indication from Washington, both in the administration and in Congress, that we've turned the corner on this issue, and our government is prepared and ready, willing, and able, and going to deal with these issues in the best interest of the American people. But it's not just the government that is going to change things. As my good friend Jim will point out, the power is with the consumers. And your ability to vote with your pocketbook every day when you go online or you go to the store and buy something. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim and let him talk a little bit about the conclusions of his book and why I think that's such a wonderful way of addressing the issue.
Thanks, Greg. Yes, actually, the thing is that if consumers are 70% of the U.S. economy. So that's our point of departure. So what that means is that Biden could change trade policy in the government and how they procure, but the government's only accounting for like 25% of the economy. So if consumers are still ready to buy a Buick made in China, then nothing the administration does is going to solve the problem. Correct. But on the other hand, if consumers do get enrolled in the idea that they can change this and they can bring these jobs home, they have the power, then indeed they can turn this ship around. And so that's what's really encouraging. In my book, I reviewed the history of all of this that Greg was describing about how those jobs went away in Baltimore. My family actually worked in the steel mills in Pittsburgh and Ohio, and I watched all those jobs going away. And so, we had this sense of helplessness. But my book has this happy last chapter saying, well, wait, we consumers could solve this. And it really just starts with, first of all, just become a label reader and become aware of this. I was in Home Depot the other day, and I was buying a 2-inch paintbrush. And so there on the wall were these paintbrushes made in the United States for $11.44 each. And next to it were paintbrushes made in China being sold for $11.44 each. And so there's not even a price difference. And yet while I was standing there, some guy walked up, grabbed one of the Chinese paintbrushes and walked away without giving it a second thought. So we as consumers really can just start with becoming aware of this and start becoming label readers, and we can be surprised that how often there's an option available. Sometimes we're not aware that they're there, like Liberty Tabletop, and so there are resources available online where we can go and learn about those companies. For example, Buy Direct USA, that's operated by Jim Palmer, has lists of these companies. You can find Greg's company there. So really, it's not as hard as we might think. Yes, we've got a hill to climb. Sometimes we do have to pay a bit more for that American product. But when we consumers realize that price is not the only thing going on here, and that we have had devastating consequences for individuals and communities, as Greg said, we have to realize how important this is for all of us. There's been some interesting research showing that the explosion in what these economists call deaths of despair, this is suicides, drug overdoses, alcohol abuse. Those tremendous increase in those deaths started in 2001 and exactly tracks our trade deficit with China. So we consumers have to understand that there are big effects going on in our communities, but we have the power to turn it around.
Nice. No, Greg, last year you started a campaign, like a pledge to Buy America. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how the consumers can kind of partake in that pledge going forward?
Right. Well, what we really wanted to do, right as the economic stimulus checks were coming out as a result of COVID, was to make sure that consumers read labels and they spent that money on products that were made here in the United States and not take those billions of dollars and send them over to China. So we launched a campaign here at CPA, and other organizations that are friendly to the cause joined in and took the pledge. And, some of those organizations went to the side saying, a month without China. And I tried to do that myself. In fact, I did it. And it really is quite challenging and eye-opening and alarming when you realize that, you're going to Lowe's and we were locked up and we're trying to do all these home renovation projects, or we're trying to buy Christmas gifts, or anything that we're trying to do with a pair of golf clubs. And a lot of things that we wanted to buy, a toaster, for example, are just simply no longer made here. So I had to skip over those for a month, and it had an impact. It really even opened my eyes to a subject I'm very close to. But then again, it also opened up my eyes to the fact that if you look hard enough, if you go on your Google search bar and you type in something made in the United States, whatever you're looking for, if there's somebody out there making it, chances are they have a decent enough marketing department to put that right in front of you. But unfortunately, there are obstacles to that. In country of origin labeling legislation that we're working on, and I'm going to hand the ball off to Jim to talk about something that he's been working on for years, and it's country of origin labeling on the internet and in catalogs and elsewhere. Jim, take it away.
Sure. Well, the thing I love about the consumer solution is that it's something that we can do right now without asking for support from the government or asking for permission from the government. But there are a couple of things we would like the government to do. And one of them we've already talked about, which is when they're spending our tax dollars, to please spend it on things that were made in the United States. But the other thing that we can ask the government to do is to change the law so that when consumers are trying to do this and we go on the internet, the seller has to tell us prominently where that product was made. They call that country of origin labeling. And these companies now mostly try to hide the ball and make it even sound like it's an American-made product. So the Coalition for a Prosperous America has, we've been working hard in Congress to amend the law to require companies to tell us where things are made when we're shopping on the internet. And we're actually quite optimistic that we may get that enacted this Congress, maybe even this year.
Yeah, you guys have done really leaps and bounds with just advocating down in DC and educating policymakers and letting people know the importance of having that country of origin labeling, on products and, beef and cattle as well. I mean, it's a really broad spectrum.
And I would add, Melissa, it really is only through CPA's entree that we've been able to do that. That's what made the difference is the CPA has a presence in Washington. It's a known entity, that it's a nonpartisan entity. And so that opened the door for us to move a bill like this one.
Right.
Nice.
And Melissa, you had mentioned earlier the nonpartisan nature. I'm not a big fan of the political theater. I would prefer to focus my time and energy on tangible things that can actually produce results. And that's another reason I joined CPA and love the organization and working closely with the organization, because we're not just getting on podcasts and blathering about a bunch of things and making a bunch of noise. We're actually trying to lobby members of Congress, provide them with information and tangible things that they can act upon and get things done. And that's important to me.
So, I mean, you guys have a Buy American committee that we do here with CPA. Can you let those who are watching know about this committee and how they can partake in it if they want to be a little bit more active in the whole country of origin labeling and Buy America, and what steps that they can take next?
Greg, why don't you take that one?
Sure. Jim and I met for the first time face-to-face at a CPA fly-in conference, and we asked Dan D'Amico at that time if he thought it would be a good idea if we created a Buy America committee. So we did, and that was some 3-4 years ago. We have some objectives ranging from government purchases at the federal and state level, trying to get businesses, B2B businesses to understand and make connections within the supply chain. We advocate for the reasons that we should buy American, that consumers should focus upon that. And again, we're trying to discuss these issues in a productive way so that we can manage them into the form of an actionable item, like a bill before Congress, or some way of, as Michael Stumo would say, moving the needle with certain representatives that we may have that we're stuck in the globalization phase and need some retraining in this area. So it's been fun, it's been productive, and we have a really good group, usually 20 to 30 people, like-minded, that get on, share ideas, and help each other in our own way to buy American and to support the cause. I've made a bunch of great friends, contacts through this that have helped my business as well. So anybody who's interested in participating in one of our calls, the information is available on the CPA website. For the Buy America committee, just go ahead and sign up, and Melissa will get you squared away, and we'll hopefully see you at the next meeting.
Yeah. And I mean, the nice thing about it is our big thing is, we want to bring it back and start reshoring, but we have so many great U.S. domestic manufacturers already producing so many good things. So to be able to have one place that can connect them all is really fortunate. And the CPA is grateful to have members as yourself that are out there advocating and doing this hard work as well. And Greg, you had mentioned the fly-in that you and Jim had met at, but this year we're actually doing a virtual conference. So that'll be March 23rd to the 26th. And people can register right online on our site. We'll go ahead and put the information down below as well. But this is a great area where you guys are going to have a whole entire panel dedicated to Buy America and having some great speakers and representatives on there to go ahead and discuss these issues. So we invite anybody who's interested. As a CPA member, it's a free benefit of having a membership with us. There is a nominal fee for non-members, but I really, really encourage you to check out the registration page for that virtual conference this year.
Yeah, I second that, Melissa. I heartily recommend it to everyone, really, to come and join us. It's easier this year because it's going to be on our laptops and our desktop. You do lose a bit of that excitement of being in the halls of Congress, but the thing I think people enjoy about that conference is that we realize, we really are not helpless, that we do have a government who listens to us, and we really do have members of Congress and staff that we can talk to about these things. So attending that conference is really inspiring because you realize that we really can have an effect.
Yeah, which is really great. And I'm sure you guys have heard already that Senator Tammy Baldwin has accepted to go ahead and speak on the Buy American panel. So we're really excited to kind of get her live and ask her some questions and give her our issues as well to get a great conversation going with that. So we're really welcoming her.
That's great. She's the principal sponsor on our country of origin labeling on the internet bill. So it's going to be wonderful to have her there in person. Yeah,
that'll be a really, really great conference. I would love to invite you guys back because I know that there's so much more to go ahead and discuss on country of origin labeling. There's de minimis issues. Buy America is really a broad area, and we really want to start dwelling down on it a little bit. So I welcome you guys back. Before I let you guys go, though, I would love to know what is your favorite Made in America product. And Greg, no cheating. You can't say Liberty Tabletop flatware.
Do you want us to pick one?
You can pick a couple if you have. I have a few favorite, but I'd love to hear what your guys's are.
Well, I'll go first. And let me say that based on my book, I have a nonprofit website that's up. It's called madeinamericaagain.org. madeinamericaagain.org. And if you click on there, you'll see these products that I'm mentioning here. One of my very favorites is called the Space Pen. These are products that have American ingenuity involved in them. And this was a pen that works in zero gravity. It actually works underwater and on wet, greasy paper. But this pen was carried to the moon, and the astronauts have been using it. And it's something that that we can buy, and we can say we own a space pen. Another example I like is a woman who actually is near me here in Pennsylvania, caught a MRSA infection at her gym. And so in response, she invented a line of gym bags that are antimicrobial, and she calls it the Pure Bag. And so that's a great example of American ingenuity, a woman entrepreneur. She's manufacturing these things in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's called the Pure Bag. So if anyone's interested in those, I think, Melissa, you may put the sites up in the chat, but also you can see these and a couple of others at madeinamericaagain.org.
Oh, thanks. And what I'll do too is after this, everybody can go ahead and visit that prosperousamerica.org, Buy America page. And this recording will be on there along with all of the links that you had just mentioned too, Jim. I'll grab them from you.
Great.
Greg, what do you got? What's your favorite Made in America products?
Well, my favorite one was I showed up to a trade conference in Indianapolis, and I met up with my good friend Jim Stuber, and there he is standing in dress clothes, and he has on a pair of tennis shoes. And I look down and I'm thinking to myself, what is the story behind the tennis shoes? And it ends up they're New Balance tennis shoes, which are made in the United States, at least 70% made in the United States. So I am now the proud owner of 2 pairs of those shoes. And let me tell you, they're some of the nicest tennis shoes I've ever owned.
Greg showed me, he sent me a picture of those with just his feet, and he said he's walking the walk.
I'm walking the walk,
Walking the talk.
not just talking the talk, right? So there are a couple other companies that come to mind. HF Cores, I just got off the phone earlier today with Dirk, a veteran, similar to us, bought a business that was going to go on the chopping blocks. And he's one of the only dinnerware manufacturers left in the United States and just fighting the good fight every day. He's a CPA member and an all-around good guy. And then there are a couple patriotic companies out there. Ben Shot, I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's glassware that's made in New Jersey, and they actually take a bullet tip and they put it in the glass. So when you have a cocktail,
I've seen them. They look great.
You got your ice floating around in there, and you're having your drink, and there's a bullet in the glass.
Those are made in America, then, huh?
They are, and they have a lot of patriotic products, and then of course, Authentically American is another company that's a veteran-owned company that does patriotic apparel and good people, and they're paying it forward in a lot of different ways. And these are just examples of how entrepreneurs. You don't have to. This isn't about Maytag opening up a factory and employing 3 million people. It's about small businesses like ours building this back from the ground up. Hopefully with the support of government, but hopefully even more important with the support of consumers. So I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you. So what I'm taking away today is, consumers have the power in their pockets to go ahead and choose where they're going to go ahead and spend their money. But in order to do so, they've got to start reading labels and asking where things are made from. So even if they're purchasing, from a boutique or online or a third-party site, ask those important questions of where is that product made from, because most of the time you can probably find a Made in America product that's going to be much better handcrafted, and you're going to suffice those economic dollars to stay in a local economy and nationally. And as I go ahead and speak that, Jim, I want to just pipe up. I know you have a small little association that you do with your website, madeinamericaagain.org, that you contribute a portion of the proceeds when they're purchased from a particular area, that the portion of those proceeds stay in that local economy?
Yes, in addition to the nonprofit site, Melissa, I'm launching a marketplace where people can buy American-made goods. I'm starting with home goods and in particular outdoor furnishings. I call that Altham, ALLTHAM.com, and it's for all things American-made. And so a percentage of every sale goes to training veterans in the jobs we're creating, these high-tech manufacturing jobs. And there's a particular charity in San Diego where, for free, the veterans come and they emerge with a certificate in advanced manufacturing. So I'm delighted to kind of connect those dots that these jobs we're creating, we should have our veterans trained to perform them.
Nice. Greg, did you want to say anything before we take off?
I wanted to add one thing. Like I mentioned earlier, CPA is part of a group of organizations that are fighting the good fight. And one of our good friends is MadeInAmerica.com, who I mentioned. I went to a trade show and spotted Jim's New Balance tennis shoes. They're actually putting on another live event in Louisville, Kentucky this October 1st through the 3rd. So if you want to meet CPA, many of our members, and make connections with other people that are either making it in America or show your wares to people who will be attending and wanting to buy Made in America, that would be a good place to start if you're not inclined to go online. So Melissa will probably put that link up on the website, and I hope you sign up, and we'll see you in Louisville.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. And, go make some more products for us, please, Greg.
Time to make some spoons.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Melissa.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.